quick overview of what's going to happen with the install. So first step is obviously getting the carpet out of here, and we'll be taking off the getting the seat belts out of the way and the trim. The way to do that is we're going to remove all this, and I've already removed the little button things. There's a button thing at the bottom here, and then all around the back. So we just have a couple more, and I highly recommend getting one of these little tools so that you can just kind of work your way under there and pop that sucker out without breaking it. Okay, once those are out, you can take out the carpet. You may have to remove the little, I don't know if you can see that, the little bump stop for the soft top that's screwed in, and you will have to remove a couple more along the back. This is the other side of the carpet underneath that top layer, so you can peel these down so you can get to these bottom bolts right here. Now you've got all that done, we can take this top down, and generally recommended to remove the seats. Gives you a lot more room to work with, only takes a minute or two. Alright, so I've taken out the 10 millimeter bolts that I can reach, which is 4 along the backside there, 5. And then we're going to take off these, well, I got the wrench handy, take out these guys. And we got one more right here. Drop that. Okay. And one more over there, or 2 more over there. Okay. Now, depending on the year of your car, actually, we're going to get to this later, but I already have a cutout right here, so I may just have to modify this slightly. This was for the stock factory bracer bar, which I don't have, which didn't come with the car, because they replaced it with that stupid style bar. But this is where it's going to bolt to the top with a spacer, and then it's also going to bolt right down here. So we're going to get this trim piece out, and to do that, we just take off a screw. To get this off, we can take off this, and then we can take out these 4 screws that are down at the bottom so that we can get at the rest of this stuff, and this will slide right off. And then we've got 4 screws down here. Oops. Don't want to strip it. I wasn't applying any pressure. Alright, so we got that, get these guys off. We'll put those 4 right over there. And we can take this off. Now this kind of just snaps into place. There's a couple little snaps that go in here. You see those right there. So that's, now that that's free, we can get rid of this. A little bit of weather stripping. That can go back here. And which allows us to get this guy. Now we're also going to have to take off the seat belt, and so that's bolted in obviously at the top, and let's see what size that is. I forget what it is. It looks like it's a 16. Again, we'll put this over here, and this actually does come unclipped right here, but it's actually just easier to take this off first. So we'll do that, and also you can't slide it back. You have to pull it out because there's a little dowel in here where it attaches. The dowel is like right behind here somewhere, and it attaches in like that, and there might be one down here as well. So you have to kind of pull it outwards a little bit. Alright, so that comes free. We're basically going to just move that aside for now. Now, it's a good idea to as part of this process, we're going to be drilling holes into this, so you don't want to damage your seatbelt reels. So mine is in here just like this. Like I said, this was a aftermarket replacement, so basically I just have the reel bolted in with this bracket to the stock bolt location. And the original seatbelt reel had a little fastener here, but that's really not necessary. It doesn't exist on many cars the way that it's designed. It only they typically only bolt down from one location. So honestly, this is fine. Basically, it just needs to be pointing straight up. That's the key. So once we've got this out, we can. I don't want this to get lost or just bumped, so I'm going to set this right down here. Obviously, you don't have to have these power tools, but they are delightful. There we go. Sorry. All right, so we got all those bolts out, and this whole thing can now come off. So now, this reveals this flange, and which has to come off. The back of the bar is going to bolt here at the bottom of the seatbelt reel, and then it's going to also bolt in here, and we're going to drill a couple holes, and so on. So what we're going to do is, this thing is spot welded on, so we're going to drill out that. I think that's the easiest way to remove that. Some people cut it off with a cutoff wheel, grinder, aviation snips, all that kind of stuff. I think it's going to be easier to just drill out the spot welds, and then that makes it, technically reversible. You can just spot weld it right back on there. So if you wanted to take it out at some point in the future. All right, let's get you a better shot of those welds. So right here, basically here and there, and then two more right underneath there. Right here and here. So 3 on top, one at the corner on this car, which is a 1994 NA 8, and that's what we're going to be removing. This is what you'll need to do those welds. You need a little punching tool. This just is a little thing that's going to go in and click once you've hit the spring, and make a nice little indentation, which is what this guide is going to go into. All right, I've center punched those little welds, as you can see. There's one, and then we have this ground block that's going here. We're going to have to relocate this. So, and then also there's a weld behind it, so it has to come off. Before we do that, of course, we should really disconnect the negative battery cable. Be safe, kids. Alright, this is what it looks like with the flange off. See, not terribly difficult to drill out those things. They just, I drilled a little bit too far on this one. That was my first one. On this one you can reach with a regular drill, but I highly recommend picking up one of these. DeWalt has one of these. They're about 20 bucks. I got this at Home Depot. It was like $19. This one has a little bit of shaft play, which makes it a little bit more challenging, but honestly it's not that big a deal. What you do is you come in here like this, and it's easy to hold it as you just go along right underneath that lip. You really need to center punch it, I found, at least with this one, with all the wobble. If you don't center punch it really well, then it will skip all over the place, and you can see me scratching up stuff as it skipped all over the place. Whoops. That was my first one that I drilled out with the spot weld drill bit. But then what you want to do is get yourself a little chisel or something like that to put in there to get that last little bit off, and it'll pop right off. It may just fall right off. You might not even need this, but this is a little persuasion with a hammer, and then this will pop right off. Now this is in perfect condition. There's nothing wrong with this. There's some rust there, but there's really nothing wrong with this. I could technically put this right back on there, and it would be fine. You could a couple of tack welds, and it would just go right back on. And side number 2 is done with. So this one was even easier. I could get my drill in for the first 2. Should be able to do that on the other side too, so either way it should work. I was able to get my drill in for the first 2 normally, which kind of speeds up the process because it's less wobbly. And then kind of go at it like this, and then pow, 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 pow. It couldn't have taken more than a minute per weld. All right, so the next thing is to take out the bolts. There's 3 of them that are down below because this thing needs to be super flush. I'm going to trial fit it. The next part is going to be to cut this shelf. We have to cut this shelf just a little bit, and I'll show you what I mean. The bar, as you can see, is flush. The back piece is flush with the front piece. So this is square. So this needs to be flush all the way back. You can't really lower it down straight. You kind of have to slide it in and lower at the same time, kind of deal. So anyway, this from the center point of this bolt, which we know where that's going, to the back of this, to give it just a little bit extra room, is about 9.5 inches. So 9.5 gives us just a little bit of wiggle room extra, I think. So I think that's fine. So if we go back to the car, and we look at what that does, of where we need to cut. And the reason why this measurement is necessary is because they don't really have a template provided. So here's the locating hole right here, because it's going to go right in there like that. And so we're going to line this up. I'm going to show you all this. And basically what it's going to do when this is lined up is it's going to extend. You can see where it extends. It goes to about just before this little notch. So let me zoom in on that. Just before this little notch. So basically we're going to cut off flush with this, straight back to just before this notch. And that little piece out the width of the bar. So about 1.75 inches, so, or 2 inches, so, or, you know, basically about here. On the other side, the Miata conveniently rusted out, so I don't have to cut out. Thanks, Miata. So I don't have to cut that out right there. I just have to cut back in the same way, flush straight back to where that little dip is in the sheet metal, and then just before it, and then straight in, and that should give me plenty of room. So, all right, so this is what it looks like. Cut out. I went a little bit farther than I said I was going to. I think that's fine. It's about right. That's about what I said. The tool I used was this, which is super awesome. So you could use a jigsaw, you could use a cutoff tool, you could use probably a bigger reciprocating saw than this. This is a one-hand unit that I picked up. I use it for lots of things, lots of trimming out in the yard. I got this, I think it was at Home Depot or something for like 90 bucks or whatever. I think it's worth it. And then basically these Diablo, I think they're 14 TPI. It got rubbed off just now, but this is what they are. Diablo metal cutting blades, which are awesome. These things cut through steel like butter. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, this whole thing, I did this in 15 seconds. This was ridiculous. It was like super easy. So all I did, this does not make turns though. That's the only downside with this. A jigsaw might be better for that, but I don't know how you're gonna get flush with a jigsaw. You have to come in from behind maybe. This would probably work. A jigsaw would probably work pretty well because you don't have a huge amount of space in here. The top has to be up for this, or you have to take the top off, which would suck. But anyway, I just made a straight cut back, a straight cut in and to the side, and then I just bent it up, and then I kind of lightsabered it off like this. Whoosh, just took it off like that. So basically about to do the same thing on the other side. All right, it's in. I did a test fit, well, mostly. I wanted to show you one thing. So it pretty much slid right in. The main thing is you want to unclip all the wires, even just everything, just so that you give yourself enough room to move things around. even these ones down here, because the bar's not even going to be there, but it's good to unclip it so you can kind of work it back and forth as necessary. So as you learn it down, obviously it makes sense to have a couple people. I don't right now. I just did it myself. It's kind of heavy. I weighed it. It's 49 pounds. So it's a little awkward, but you can do it. So I've got it on this. It's just sitting up on this hammer right now because I wanted to show you one specific place. This side went in fine. You kind of had to just maneuver that wire pack around it so that it went underneath the bar and then around the plate, just so that everything's out of the way and doesn't get pinched. As you can see here, there's zero pinching. There's no stress on here. This is kind of sharp, but honestly, that's how it was stock. It was just laying on top of that thing. So that should be fine. It's all wrapped up. So what the deal was here was there's a lot of stuff going on here. These are the two pulls for the gas filler lid and also the trunk pull. And so what I ended up doing is making sure this was out from underneath this other line right here. And this is basically the normal routing. It goes right across here just like this normally. And so to make this easier on myself, I just put it on a little block so that I could prop it up and not have to hold it while I wiggled it. But basically this thing either needs to be pulled out so you can put this in front, or it needs to be kind of pushed back into the side so that you can put this wire behind it, because it's kind of a thick bundle right here. And so this is not a cut, that's just where the tape wrapped. All these looms are hand wrapped in Japan. So this allows you to get this little block right here is in kind of just the wrong position, I guess. I don't know, for this part of it it's fine, but you kind of have to work around it. So you have plenty of space when you lower this down, but just make sure it's all out of the way, and then you'll be able to slide this out. I located it with the bolt here just to make sure that everything's still lined up once this was in. I did have to push this back a little bit because it seems like there's still a little bit of flex. Didn't quite line up, but once you push it back, it drops right in. And then once you do that, you want to check to make sure that all these holes line up on both sides. And I did drop a bolt through that one, and that dropped through just fine. We drilled out right here, and we've got 4 holes. And then basically, to make sure that everything stays put while you do everything else, oh my gosh, my camera work is horrible. We're going to thread these through with the plates on the back, and then the same on the other side. And then we're going to do this nasty one in back here. You can't really see because all those cables are in the way, but we're going to drill out one of those from the top, and then with the plate we should be able to locate the other two, and be able to drill it up from the bottom. Next we're going to jack up the car, which I've already done, and remove the wheel, and then we're going to be getting at this splash guard. So these are just held in by about 4 10 mils. Okay, so I got the plate up there, and given the choice, I like to put the bolt heads down. This makes it a little bit tricky just because they don't stay there by gravity, but basically you or somebody has to hold it anyway. So by having the bolt heads down, the threads of the bolt don't get exposed to the elements. We're going to coat all this with a little plasti dip or some kind of undercoating anyway, but even then, it means if you have to do something with it, you can you don't have to clean up the threads, get that coating off just to be able to unthread the bolt. So I think this is a little bit better to do it this way. Okay, all three in there. I'm not going to say it was super easy, but there's a fair amount of drilling involved, but because my bit was starting to die by the end. But got it all in there. Need to put the other plate back on, and then we can start torquing everything down. Actually, it's a good idea to spray a little rust protectant or some paint or something like that in these spots. So I need to take out the hardware and kind of do that, and then we should be good. I sprayed a little of this rust stuff. I've used it elsewhere on the car when I found rust. It's pretty good. It converts rust and it blocks it. So just hit it a couple times up there, and then use a little towel to block the overflow. Overspray. So that's all good. I'm gonna just let that cure for a little bit, and then we'll be able to reinstall the hardware. Okay, after the rust protect treatment, got everything back in, and it's bolted down to about 45 foot-pounds. If you don't have a torque wrench that can fit, just do your best. You can get a torque wrench on the other ones, but the ones in the back, it may not fit right. Mine, it's so close to the side that the head is just too wide. All right, so I got that in, and I also got the ground figured out. Right down there. I got this clipped in here, and what I did was I wire brushed off some of the paint that was there on the back side, as well as on the plate that's on here. So it's basically grounding against everything, the chassis, the bar, everything. Just to try it out. I started it up, everything was fine. Tested the lights and all that type of stuff. All right, so we got everything torqued down, and that was not fun. Trying to torque everything down to about 45 foot-pounds was interesting, since there's like 20 bolts. Okay, so now I'm gonna put down a layer of protective coating. Already shaking this can up. I've got my brake stuff coated, and we'll try to spray some up here. Did I get any of that on film? Probably not. Okay, so we're gonna do a liberal coat. Normally when painting you do some light coats. With this, it really does not have to look pretty, and you want it to be thick. So I'm gonna do a couple heavy coats on both sides, and then then we'll call it a day for that. So that's gonna coat it up nicely. It'll come off very easily with a little brush. So if you ever need to get at these bolts and you want a tight fit on your socket, then you'll be able to take it off very quickly. So what I've done is I snipped it back with some of these aviation snips, and I bent the remaining material back underneath. I figured that would be a little bit easier to deal with if I wanted to fill in this little gap and fold it back. Pulling it up while bracing on the top is going to be a lot easier than trying to push it down while this continues to flex and do all kinds of crap, and you can't really reach underneath here to brace it. So by pulling it up, that gives me a better chance of that actually working out. Otherwise, probably just get frustrated and cut the whole thing off. So anyway, I may still do that. We'll see. So everything's laid out the way it needs to be, and all of them line up. So now we've got to mark out the slots for the middle tier. So I'm gonna write right in the middle, and then I'll put a mark sides about how they go. And you want to be straight in the car, so that'll involve getting in the car to make these little marks. Try to get this right in the middle, And on the side, and it's about like that. And so the reason I'm getting into such detail on this is because the online instructions are for a different shelf, for the MB, I believe. And it looks different, and it's measured different. So I wanted to do some details because I haven't seen that out there before. All right, so we're on test fit number 2. Got everything, those little edges clipped off so that they'll fit. Some duct tape around here. All I happened to have was brown. But you can see these bolt holes line up now. That lines up. A little bit of flexing is necessary. So with the everything cut out, I thought it might be good to show a picture of this kind of straight out of the car so that you can see exactly kind of how it was. You can use this to do your own kind of templates. I didn't bother with cardboard or anything like that. I just kind of looked at it. But anyway, this is what it looks like. And if we flip around from the back, this would be like looking at it above from the back of the car. So those are the little notches where they go. And so you can see on each side, the brown tape makes it stand out a little bit better, actually. So this is how much we cut out. And you can kind of get an idea from, on your NA, you should have the same holes in there. Okay, and then on each side, cut out a little notch, just like that. And the same on this side. So as I mentioned before, you want to make sure that these wires are out of the way. And of course, this needs to be re-bolted down if you moved it like I did. This is the defroster tab. So that goes, we'll wrap around on top, and we'll bolt down right behind the tower. So just a little miscellaneous cleanup before you do a final fitting. All right. So we got the panel on. The side thing worked out fine. This is what it looks like. You can tell that the this bent right back to where it was, so that'll be nice. There's a little flexy because there's not a bolt right there, but it'll support the carpet just fine. What needs to happen is this is going to slide in like this, and as you can see, we basically have to cut it right at the base, and it's actually pretty tight right at the base there. Now this is going to slip backwards, so after we get it in, it'll kind of not be as tight, but getting it in is going to be a little bit of a tight fit because of there's just very little room right there, and this little lip has to go around it. Here's where it stands. So basically just cut straight back along here, and I lift this little tab here. I may cut that off, I don't know. And I put it in, and so all I need to, I judged pretty well, stopped right about there. I just need to cut off this little corner that's like hitting a little bit. It makes it so it doesn't quite sit flush. So basically you just have to trim out a little, just a little corner of an inch there. All this is done with the Dremel with the cutoff wheel. This is actually a metal cutoff wheel, but it works great for everything. I think I've been using this one wheel for months and it's still sharp, although I've been doing some plastic recently with it, so I haven't been doing that much metal. So it's been working great for everything. And there you have it. That's a pretty close fit. All right, trying to hold these up. So this is the passenger side on the left. All those scratches are from the previous owner's stupid style bar, so I can't do anything about that, but I tried to clean this up as good as I could. Just put a little sandpaper just to smooth out some of the burrs and just make it a really clean edge. So now, putting them up like this, you can tell they're mirror images of each other, the driver's side, and all I need to do is sort of mark out where that is and cut just like that. So this little piece, because it has some space, you can actually slide this under and work this up and it will go right in. So maybe what I'll do is I'll just, I don't know if it'll rattle or not once it's all bolted down. If it does, it's pretty simple to put like a little, you know, piece of rubber in there or foam, and just grab some of this stuff actually and shove that underneath, you know, or something like that, and that's going to keep it from rattling, making noises or something like that. Pro tip: do not do this on a summer day when it's 105 degrees in your garage. it is brutal. Yeah, almost there. Now it's time for the carpet. So this is the last piece, and you want to take your time with this because basically only get one shot at it. So what I'm going to do is I've laid this back here, and I'm going to put in a few of the tacks at the back, those little buttons that go in there, and especially this little middle one right there, because that helps get everything centered in the right place, and plus it's the most annoying to get in if you can't lift this up. So I usually put that one in first, and then I work from outwards from there. So then what I'm going to do is basically just push down, sorry about the lighting, and then once I get to the rail there, make a small incision and you know, push it down until we get to here. Hopefully that will be all you know, correct, and then we'll get to the front one on the corner and we'll get that one taken care of, and then we can kind of work our way around, just keeping everything straight, push down, maybe. All right, so the last thing, taking off the padding that was on the top, so now it's just a clean looking thing, is just a minute to talk about the top. Because I did a lot of research to try to figure out, I had to replace the top as well, and I did that first. But to figure out what would work with this particular roll bar, because I knew I wanted this one. I wanted the double hoop Deuce, and I think the center brace looks a lot better than the side brace, and I wanted a top that would fit with that. And I did a lot of research looking for people who had it, and nobody was posting online about that. And I called up Hard Dog, and they said, yeah, I think it'll work, you know, if assuming the glass is a certain size, and that's on their website. But they couldn't really give me any definites, which was a little surprising because it seems like they would know, they could talk to their customers who had it. But I'm here to say it works. It's not 100% perfect, no rub, but it's very little. So what happens is when you raise the top, you're going to want to, you see how it's coming up, and it's getting real close and kind of almost snags a little bit right there on that brace. But then you're done and it's up. So, I mean, that's very little. What you would do, I think, is maybe do a two, if you want to be absolutely careful, and down, there's no problem whatsoever. It just like falls down and everything's good. So when you're raising it, I think it just requires maybe a little bit of carefulness just to push the top, the glass back a little bit so that it doesn't like kind of snag or rub on that brace. But other than that, when it's down, you know, it's not even close to the brace. So this is just the cloth that's being pushed back just a tad. And this is as flat as my top laid anyway. You know, it's always been like this. It's always been a little higher maybe than the thing. So that seems pretty normal for me. So just wanted to mention that. So now we can see what it looks like with the seat in the car. And basically, so I did measure, just like their website said, this bar is 29 inches back from the center of the windshield. So that's as far back as any of the bars that you can find out there on the market. So that's what he ended up with. So that's definitely a safety thing that you want to check out when you're researching bars, is how close is it going to be to your head, and if something were to happen, would an impact bounce you out of the seat and somehow allow you to hit your head? And so I think that'd be a little tough. I mean, possible, anything's possible, but if your seatbelt's working correctly, it should hold you down at least, so that you shouldn't be bouncing up and back that far. I don't know. That's what I tell myself. So we'll see. Hopefully we won't see. But that's the idea. And based on the chassis stiffening, that's pretty crazy. I think it's pretty awesome. So can't wait to drive the thing. We're gonna pop these little tabs on. These pop on, cover up the bolts. So this should just pop right on. That. All right, we'll pop that one on. Get that solid. Okay. All right, looks clean. There we go. There's our roll bar install. Thank you very much.